Now we'll chat some football with Dan McDonnell. Our football coverage is in association with Sky Sports, where you can experience more exclusive live sport than anywhere else, including at least 215 Premier League games from next season, every golf major, including Portrush, obviously, next week, every F1 race, Premier League darts, Lions Tour ongoing, and more besides. You can watch Sky Sports on Sky or you can stream it with Now. We are talking on Thursday, so ahead of the St. Pat's game, which we'll come back to at some stage. But the night after, Shelbourne won, Linfield nil at Talca Park. You were there.
Yeah, I was. I wouldn't say I was surprised by what unfolded, to be honest. I came around to thinking probably looking at it from a Shelbourne perspective that, and it's my view is probably strengthened now that like this draw is a fantastic opportunity for them, and if they let it pass, they'll struggle to forgive themselves. I think you look at the record of the Northern Irish sides, the Northern Irish champions at this particular round in the last 5-6 years when they play teams from a summer league, it's not good. It's not good at all. Now this is obviously, at times I'm sure then they would have been playing the undisputed best team in that country. Like Shells aren't quite that at the moment, but I think the obstacle to Shells going through is not Linfield finding some other level next week, although I'm sure they possibly might. I think it's just Shells coping with their first time being in this situation because, I mean, the fitness thing is a big thing, but I would make the point as well that I just think they're from a better league and I think they have better players in a lot of technical areas. So I think they'd be very frustrated if they let this one slip. And yeah, there's a small sense last night of, with their level of dominance, could they have been in a stronger position? Yeah, potentially, but I actually think the nature of what the game is likely to be like next Wednesday will probably suit them as well too.
So what are you saying to me? They were just dominant.
Yeah, I mean, we'll put it this way. Okay, stats are stats, and they can be. They had 5 corners in the first 20 minutes. The fifth one then generated the first ever VAR usage at Talca Park, which was slightly ironic that you look at the archive footage of Talca 20 years ago and it looks newer. More people were able to go to big games. I mean, where else in world football does archive footage of a stadium look better than the present day? It sort of sums up the sort of absurdity of the Shells story in a lot of respects. But the VAR was put in with the help of RTE. I was there on Tuesday. They're all testing it. You see, basically, like 4 or 5, just I don't know who they are, random staff in their civvies just bouncing a ball and then like walking to the edge of the area, simulating like one challenging the other, and then they walk back and they say, "Yeah, this is all working." So they got this VAR installed, and then it comes back and hurts Shells. It was the right decision. But they had 9 corners in the first half. Only 2 good chances, but still, I mean, they 74% possession, owned the ball, and Linfield looked leggy, I felt, within half an hour. And again, at times there was just these physical confrontations where players were getting shoved off the ball, and you're thinking, this is unusual to see that. You don't, maybe it's just because the football, the league now, everyone's full time. You don't necessarily see that disparity in terms of conditioning at times. But my slight fear, if you want to be negative about it from Michelle's perspective, would be that when they went 1-0 up, and to be fair, it was after making a treble change that sort of altered the way they were structured. They went 1 up, almost the sub worked so good, they scored straight away. They actually struggled a little bit, I felt, when they were 1-0 ahead. And they made a couple of questionable decisions, and you're thinking, oh yeah, they haven't been here before. And I think I actually put it to Joey O'Brien afterwards, and it was sort of, he took it as a really negative point. I was almost trying to make the point, look, this is a high pressurized game. People are going to make mistakes. Like, the stakes are so high. And his response was, "You're all being way too down here." I thought that was a great result. This is a great win. But I'm almost saying, almost in mitigation, like, I think Shells can probably play better than they did. And at 1-0, they probably could have managed it better. But I would just say they haven't been here before. There's so much money at stake. Like, there's so many angles to this that you just, like, I watch this round every year. And like last year, I mean, Shamrock Rovers had this glorious European run. But in this round, they almost collapsed in the last few minutes, and the team from Iceland missed a penalty. And if that penalty is scored, it could be a completely different story, because this round is almost like, in some respects, like, the qualifying for a major tournament stage, where these playoffs can just be crazy. And teams tend to often relax when they get past this round. I think there were signs of that with Shells, and my fear next Wednesday wouldn't be based around ability. I think on ability they should go through. It would maybe just be composure and coping with the magnitude of, this is really important to everyone. And you see the owners and everyone is like completely almost het up because they know this means so much.
Well, it's worth the guts of 2 million and X number of guaranteed games thereafter.
Yeah.
This is the one.
Yeah. Like, so this tie alone is 750 grand, but it's, on top of the 960 they already have. But it's the gateway aspect to it. That's the worst case. When people say I think it's 1.7 million, but that's the worst case. That's the worst case scenario. That's basically, you get that if you go on to lose 3 more ties.
The worry, so they looked just superior physically, and I think even just in general play ahead of Linfield as well. But like, there is a continuation of a trend here for all that dominance. Toothless is probably wrong, but like not far off at times. Like, they flatter to deceive up top a lot now. It's kind of become their identity. Like, it's a big problem, and a 1-0 lead away from home, especially if Linfield score and the crowd are up for it, etc. Like, I take Joey O'Brien's point here. This is a good result, but like on the basis of the game, the nagging thought you'd have to have at the back of your head is, we couldn't really expect to dominate a game more. 1-0 is like a minimum here, that we could expect to have, and so that always, I think, leaves you feeling a little bit uneasy when that's part of a wider trend. Yeah,
no, and I think definitely at half time, I was thinking, I've seen this game before. And I think everyone involved with Shells was like, we've seen this game before. And I felt that Linfield would approach the game the way that they did, in that, and I think David Healy did make a valid point afterwards. So for all the dominance, he did say, well, how many chances did they have in the first half? Like, it was dominance, but Evan Caffrey missed a very good early chance after a slip. Like, they weren't exactly in general play, like threading, passes through and last ditch blocks. And I felt maybe at times Linfield were letting them play in certain areas, and then when Shells tried to get round the edge of the box in the 25 yard, then they would flood them a bit. Then Shells go wide and rinse and repeat a little bit. The goal came when they brought on the second striker, and Linfield just temporarily lost a little bit of their focus. So no, I do see what you're saying. I think it's a reasonable way to look at it. The only slight point I would make is, and I think this even would be acknowledged by some people associated with Linfield, is that they play in a big old stadium, Windsor Park. It is not the most intimidating place to go. There's going to be 1,300 Shells fans travelling, who are going to have, for security reasons, almost like half of one side of the ground to themselves. It's a fantastic surface, and it's going to be probably wider and longer than Tolka Park, which will suit Shells, I think, if Linfield have to come and attack them a little bit. So in a traditional first leg to second leg equation, I think your points are sound. And you, next Thursday, we may well be saying that was correct. That's what happened. But I do think in this instance, once Shells didn't draw this game, I feel like actually Linfield coming out a little bit more should suit them.
No, it
should suit them.
I'm taking it deliberately. Let's be worried, cautious.
I think that's probably that's the message I think you'd want within the Shells group as well. I think they need to be thinking and prepared for that.
Do Linfield have an excuse for being so unconditioned out of season, notwithstanding? Like, come on, you're professional footballers.
Yeah, I think how they see European football north of the border is it's evolving now, and it's changing. Larne last year were the first team to ever get into the groups. In Ireland, like here, that happened in 2011. So what? That's a 13 year gap. You go back 5-6 years, 7, maybe a bit longer, but you'd have very part time up there, managers on holidays and missing games. A weird culture whereby. And that's maybe how clubs down here might have viewed European football 20, 25 years ago, a social trip, a jolly. Now, like the riches are such, it's just absolutely huge. And yeah, I mean, Linfield are full time now. You would look at it and think, they won their league really early. They've played just 2 friendlies. Could they? They will say, I think they're a member financed club. They're not exactly a club that's, despite being a big club, I don't think they've lost some of their players to rival clubs. So I don't think are they a club that could afford to go to Spain for 7 to 10 days and do something? I think a League of Ireland club would be in that scenario if they were in this situation. You
don't need to go to Spain. Have you seen the weather outside?
Well, that's true. Actually, you just go to.
They can train.
There
in the
are
height
places
of summer.
they can go. Yeah.
Do we need to go to warm weather training in July? No. Just get fit. There's £2 million on offer.
Must be somewhere around Portrush or somewhere.
Yeah, I was shocked. I have to say, some of their players are not like. It's terrible.
But it was like that when Shamrock Rovers played Larne in October. I think there is a marked difference, and a lot of the betting and the sort of the models would have had it as very close.
Yeah.
And Linfield at home second, and I do get it, but my belief, and like watching the game last night, I'm really firm in it. I just think there's a gap.
There is, but all the more reason that 1-0 is a little.
Oh no, this is like, and that's my point. It's not about being a level thing. I would have messaged a lot of people, say in football, who have a knowledge about leagues. What's your opinion?
Yeah.
And they've all said they think Shells will go through.
Yeah.
They all believe it. So I think if they don't, they've slipped up rather than they just lost to a team they couldn't beat. It's not going to be one of those if they don't go through.
I watched Joey O'Brien's interview on RTE afterwards with Peter Collins and Alan Cawley, and it was Stewie Byrne, wasn't it?
Stewie, yeah, it was Stewie Byrne, yeah.
Please stop asking me questions about me and Shells and everything. Just the players. So that's very understandable. How is he settling in early days? Impressions of Joey O'Brien and what kind of fit he is for Shelbourne at this point?
Like Joey O'Brien is just the football man.
Yeah.
And he does not want this flowery stuff. Like he is from an era of, Joey O'Brien, because he was obviously in the shadow of Damien Duff. You forget that Joey O'Brien himself had a very good career, he's had a very interesting football life. And look, there have been times where I've spoken with Joey O'Brien and others have spoken with Joey O'Brien, and he's been very reflective. I remember he spoke once about, Gary Speed was the first person to buy him a pint of Guinness, I think, and spending time with him, I think, when he was at Bolton, and he's in a Big Sam dressing room, and he's been around. He was there at Bolton when they had all those characters,
and even in this country, he's one of the more high-profile and consistent voices on Palestine. He's got a wide hinterland. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying. Last night, I saw someone really wanting to eschew, and he please, not me. Don't talk about me. Damien Duff was like, "Roll up, boys. Here we go. Here's 10,000 words for the morning."
He's like, no, Damien's no, I don't really want this, but sorry, what's that question there? I'm going to give you, I asked Joey Bryan on Tuesday. I thought this was okay, come out with a slightly different way here. Since you took the job, have you spoken to any of your former managers? There's anyone you sort of reached out to now, I just noted that the predecessor would have been, when it was some joke about Mourinho or whatever it might have been, and Joe's like, "Here, listen, no," just like it was.
You're like pen at the ready.
Yeah. Here, listen, no, just none of that. Just crack on with the football, and that's
less of the talk.
Yeah,
let's play football.
He's an interesting person. I know he's very intelligent. I've heard it said before that he listens, and he will. Damien Duff always used to say if there was something on a podcast or that Joey would tell him, he's the one who listens to a lot of that stuff. And so don't be fooled by maybe the abrupt and blunt appearance sometimes, but when it comes to his own engagement, he's just very much like, not having any of this. Just players, football, any of your bigger picture stuff. Now, he wants to be in management. I do think there might come a time where he might need to evolve with some of that stuff as well. But in the here and now, I think he probably has recognised that there's a very, let's just get back to business here, because there's a very short term but very attainable and
Yes.
substantive prize here. So now is not the time to sort of sit down waxing lyrical
Yeah, yeah.
or to
And how is he even
go through everything.
received in the dressing room? Based on sources and talking to people, how's it going?
Oh, I think it's going well. Yeah, I think it is. I think people recognise that they still needed a bit of stability. They didn't need a dramatically different regime as such. And no, I mean, I suppose I haven't heard anything negative, and I suppose just the evidence of what you're seeing on the pitch. I think that they have played well since the transition. It is very possible that there are just a couple of players who have maybe benefited from a slightly different voice.
Yeah.
Just there's a sense of okay, there's a different person calling the shots here, and it might just be a little bit of a. Mark Coyle used the phrase the other day, a bit of a recharge, while trying to be very respectful in what he said about Duff. There is this language of reset and recharge, and it does support the argument that maybe it had just reached a point where it was so intense that everyone just needed the foot off the gas was needed, So, but I think that, and I think it's all going well, and this is a very positive endorsement. I think they're very well set up to cope with all of this in the short term. I think longer term, I don't know what they're going to do. Does he need to get another coach or someone in with him? That's obviously a question for them. But I think in the here and now, they're engaged in something, and I think I think it's like block all the noise out and let's get on with it. That's actually the right message that they need for where they are.
Yeah, it's two quick follow-ups. The foot off the gas point. Interesting. Duff's football on 10A, probably so sharp, probably realised this isn't working. I'm not getting the same reaction. You wonder if I'd love to know, and we'll hear from him at some stage, I'm sure. In the midst of trying different things to shock this dressing room and get them going again, I wonder if he ever tried do you know what? We're not trying to train it today. We're going to the 40 foot and we're getting 99 cones and we're going to relax. I wonder if he tried that foot off the gas approach touch.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there was that. I mean, at times you would hear about the nights out that he would give the players, and there was stuff like that. But it was an interesting one that, like, Duff left in the middle of 5 games in 14 days. And I was at the 5th game, where obviously he was gone, and it was against Galway. And I think a couple of players were left on the bench who you'd expect to play. And the vibe I was getting was that, like, Duff was obviously off the break, was just trying to get results in the next game and the next game. And I think there was a recognition that I think we can just rest a couple of players. Let's build the bodies towards Linfield, and maybe just a different focus worked. And I think we said it in here in the sort of the post-Duff departure show, like, the generous reading of Duff's action was that he recognised that he wasn't getting a tune from the players anymore, and that may well be the case, And
it's funny though, because he positioned. I don't know about Duff again, but it's hard.
It's a part of the story. You just can't get to apologise for that
a little bit. Yeah. So when you're talking, the sense from him was like motivation. If you boiled it down to what he was saying and how the players are preparing, they're not taking ownership. There was a degree of like, where's the motivation? I can't imbue them with motivation. They're sucking me dry. But the other side of maybe what looks like lack of motivation is tiredness. Tired. We've won a league. It was an epic season. God, we're back at it again. It's tough. Just ask Rory McIlroy. It's not always easy to get again.
Yeah.
So there is that. The other thing I wondered though, I think it's O'Brien's. Not that I know him as well as you, but I got the impression from looking at his interviews. I think it's his natural instinct to dodge the limelight and make it all about the players. But I wonder as well if consciously or unconsciously there was a degree of like, they've been in this guy's shadow a long time. Maybe in my interviews, I'm pushing them forward. Like instead of I'm on my journey. People say I'm mad. Call Jose, do this. Give 5 minutes in RTE. All anyone talking about is Duff. It is a strong contrast of O'Brien saying the players, wanted the players. Now I don't know. I think that's his natural default thing, and I think it will be in years to come. But I also wonder if you thought maybe it is time to just let these players get a bit more of the plaudits. Let's talk about them. It's just a striking contrast.
I think there's something in that. I think there is something in that. I wouldn't dismiss that at all. Like he's shrewd. Like he's clever. I mean, I'm not going to pretend I know him well, but I know people. I feel like I know some people well who would know him. And yeah, I mean, I think look at Mipa Wadabeka, who scored last night. Like a very talented player. Like, I mean, a couple of years back, people were worried he might defect to England. Like, when he was at West Ham and one of the best players of his Irish generation. And before Duff departed, there was games he was on the bench and an unused sub, and you're thinking, God, he's frustrated with him. But there's definitely a player there, even if it can be an extremely frustrating player. And all of a sudden,
he's volatile.
Oh, he is. But I mean, it's a net positive, I guess.
He's a good goal. It's a clever goal.
He scored in each of his last 3 games. Yeah. Admittedly, he probably could have scored 9 in those 3 games. The game in Galway was sort of hilarious, almost how amazingly unplayable he was, but then how erratic he was. And there was 1 or 2 last night where he just takes a wild shot from, but
yeah,
he is the one. He is the one that in Europe, like if Shells get through this round and they're under pressure, pace in Europe is everything.
Is he there, Darwin Núñez?
That comparison's been made. It's been made. Yeah, I think Gavin Cooney said that somewhere this week.
No,
I'm going to give him, but it's. I'm annoyed I didn't say it. I've always thought of him in those terms.
Damn you, Cooney.
He is that type. Well, I made the point that his performance in Galway was like the Lukaku one in Qatar, a game I was at when Belgium played Croatia. Do you remember that game where Belgium went out and Lukaku had like 6 chances in half an hour? And you're thinking, how do you... there was 2 things. How do you keep getting in these positions to score? That's clearly an amazing attribute and instinct.
Sure.
But also, like, your judgment here is he was stepping on rakes. Meepo,
he's more of a Tasmanian devil.
Yeah, the Núñez thing actually is probably
Can you take that one too?
Yeah. Let's go off the bingo sheet of what we can compare him to. But the point is, in Europe, he's an invaluable asset, and you need him on side. You need him happy. You need him smiling. And I think, maybe he is one who looks. You just look at him and you think, okay, they're just playing him. Even Meepo said last night, I think he almost expected to be taken off when Sean Boyd was brought. Oh no, I'm not being taken off. Oh, 2 of us together. And look, that's maybe where you're seeing the quiet influence.
Okay, early days. We should mention the second leg will not be on RTE, so you'll have to pay to watch that one somewhere.
Yeah, and I mean the RTE production was excellent last night, But yeah, no, the BBC Northern Ireland have it, but I think it's on the right player. I think it's going to be geo-blocked, although I think there are parts of the jurisdiction where people can pick it up. But yeah, basically it's on a Solid Sport streaming service. People have to pay for it. I mean, it's
Solid Sport.
Yeah,
it's kind of. I don't mean this in a kind of glib or trying to be critical way, but it's almost it's RT's relationship with the league over the last however many years in microcosm, where they'd show a few games and then like nothing, and then another handful of games, then nothing, then the finale. It's like, it's so incomplete. To show the first leg on national TV and it's 1-0, and like all Joey O'Brien said about 8 times was, it's only half time, and it's like, we don't have the second.
We don't have the second half. It's like, this movie, you can find the rest of it elsewhere.
And I'm sure there are sound financial logistical reasons, but
yeah, I think the RT will defend their position on it. Around, there seems to be an element of scheduling and needing to know. But to me, yeah, I find it odd. They did a really good production of the first leg, I have to say.
Yeah, because I'd say they were keen to remind everyone, we can do this.
Definitely. I think the staff, you can see it, they were motivated to do a really good show. But, I mean, did they secretly hope that maybe they were more confident than anyone that, it was going to
4-0.
Yeah, there we go.
Roy Keane, not playing the second leg in Iran.
But instead, it's like, the decider, you can... So,
yeah, no, it's glaring. It's glaring.
Yeah.
Just before you go, Aidan Fitzmaurice, back page of the paper today. Football Italia yesterday reported that agreement is in place for Evan Ferguson to go on loan to Roma, or certainly very, very close. Brighton have spent €70 million this summer on players, and they need to offset that, but they're not willing to sell Ferguson just yet. Either because they want to whack up the price and hope he has a great season, or because they think this guy's going to come good. We're not letting him go for a while yet. That's TBC. So still only 20, off, having his summer and letting his hair down, and that's all.
Yeah. Appeared in a couple of strange pictures over the summer.
Yeah, I know. Not the most judicious company in places.
No.
But,
no.
However,
surprising.
Yeah. He's going to go to Roma, it would appear, or this still TBC very much? Or
Yeah, listen. As I said, I'm not going to pretend I've been sort of pursuing that
sure.
story. So, but what I would say, and look, I was actually speaking to another journalist in the last couple of days who, you know, who had sort of based in England. This is who had a sense that the loan thing with Ferguson might be more likely than the permanent. But obviously, look, these things can always change. I'm wary of saying it because when he went to West Ham, I'm pretty sure I would have been here. Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds good. My instinct around this would be similar, but I'm just kind of almost a bit scarred by is this just wishing something to happen? But I do feel I like the idea of him going to a different country and having a little bit of maybe a reset for him. You know, he had the option, I think, of Leverkusen last year, and went the West Ham route, which probably, look, it just didn't work out. It's easy to be a genius about all these things in hindsight, but it was obviously like a nice safe option. This one I'd like it because it's a whole season. It's not coming in January, where often the January player, it's like if you don't make an instant hit, you're sort of gone. And I think for his development, I like it. I think more Irish players seem to be willing to look outside. I'm sure you must look at someone like Troy Parrott and how he may even have got ahead of him in the Irish pecking order. I mean, they had a couple of nights out together recently, so they might have to discuss these topics. But I think so. I think Brighton definitely. I think that I'd be more on the value angle here. Like, he's under contract till 2029. His value is probably at its lowest it's been since he started scoring goals. I think it wouldn't take much to change it and make him a 40-50 million euro player again.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like the sound of it.
You might have to go to Rome to cover a piece or two at some stage.
I mean, that is, if that's an imposition that comes with this, all these wild geese heading around the football world. But I mean, I will say, I went to watch Troy Parrott. It was actually a Robbie Keane piece, but watching Troy Parrott play for Alkmaar in a sort of a group stage game, and you're thinking, yeah, this is a really great experience for him. And maybe Evan Ferguson, West Ham, you're not playing, you're around London. It's just,
he has to play.
It's very easy to just fall into a cycle, and it might be great for him to just, not like one of these great Aaron Connolly rebirths that happens every 6 months or so. I sort of feel with Evan, maybe this has to be a bit of a reckoning, and to see if this can really properly rebuild him. So we'll see if it happens. I mean, it's still at that stage, but what I will say, it does seem to make sense.
Okay. Dan, thanks very much. That is Football Show for today. Also in your feed, Conor McKeown and Tomas O'Shea looking ahead to the All-Ireland semi-finals. Yesterday we had rugby. There's bits and bobs knocking around. There's Paul McGinley this week as well. Talking all things the Irish and the Open and this love affair of the last 15, 20 years. What else is there? Dun, 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 dun. Can't remember.
Boxing?
Good though. Boxing! That was actually very good.
Yeah.
Katie Taylor, Serrano, the Netflixication of sport, all that kind of stuff.
Good quotes from Katie Taylor.
Yeah. That's Friday, 3:30 a.m. So that is all in your feed. Dan, thanks very much.
No worries.